Welcome to another episode of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast that I record here in the Greg's World Podcast Network headquarters, which sounds very impressive, but in reality is just me sitting in my basement talking to my microphone. In other unimpressive news, last week's show length wasn't impressive at all. It was a short episode because we had to record a couple days early. I had to record it on a Friday, and we lost 2 days of content. Or did we? Because we had an amazing time going to New York City last week with our friends. Childhood friends of both my and my wife's, if that's proper English. Her name's Autumn and her husband Chris. We usually visit them at their place in Lancaster because that's a mecca of shopping and all kinds of things to do versus where we live, which is literally nothing. And we decided this time, instead of just going to their place, why didn't we do something a little more special and go to New York City? My history with New York City is very limited. I had gone there one other time before, probably back in, I want to say maybe like 2004, 2005. Cody and I went, maybe it was even later than that. I don't remember because I wasn't vlogging then. Vlogging is the way, if you want to remember everything and anything about your life, film it all. And then you can go back and reference it anytime you want. But this is years before that ever happened in my life. But we went to New York City on one of the bus lines to go visit the museums there. What museum did we go to? Let me check. Was that it? Okay, thank you. Metropolitan Museum of Art is what we went to visit. And I had just an awful experience. And I'll tell you why. The night before our trip, we were set to leave very early. The night before, I couldn't sleep, or I went to bed late, and I was like, oh man, this is going to suck tomorrow, but at least I'll be able to sleep on the bus on the way there. Spoiler alert for anyone planning to sleep on one of these bus lines that take you across the country. It's not going to happen. So I had very limited sleep when I got to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. And the whole day I was just dragging. I was so tired. I'm not a coffee drinker. I probably should have been that day, but I just wanted to sleep. I just wanted to lay down, and that didn't happen. But I did get to tour the place, and it was great. I have tons of photos of it, even though I can't remember what the place is called. Again, this was years ago. But that was my experience. We didn't really get to explore New York City pretty much at all. We just got dropped off there, spent the whole day there, and I think we might have went somewhere else too. Cody said no, but I think we did. I'll have to review the photos. Probably I'll never do that. I don't even know where they are actually. But that was our experience in New York City, and of course, I wanted more of New York than just that. So this was a trip that I was really looking forward to. And Friday, after recording the podcast that evening, we ended up driving down to Lancaster to spend the night there because we were leaving the next day. And I definitely fixed my problem from the last time because this time we stayed at a Hampton Inn. It wasn't my first, second, third, or even fifth choice for hotels because we've stayed them before and they're not great. But all of the hotels in Lancaster were sold out. I have no idea what was going on there. Cody was speculating that maybe it's because it's wedding season, and that's a beautiful place to get married. There's a lot of Amish farms, and it's just gorgeous, and especially last weekend, which the weather was incredible, and we'll talk more about that. But all the hotels were sold out, and I waited until the last minute to book it like an idiot because I was like, I'll do that. Procrastinators. That's how I live. I live by the motto, and I'm trying to not live this way anymore. Don't follow this. Why do today what you can do tomorrow? That was my philosophy before, and I'm trying to not have that. In fact, there's a whole series that I'm doing on Greg's World that's going to be the complete opposite of that. And I'm really looking forward to that. But we'll talk more about that next week because it started yesterday. So we ended up booking the Hampton Inn. I used all the points that Hilton gave me from when we had that incident at the Hilton over our vacation. If you go back a few episodes, you can hear all about that when we stayed in Ocean City. So I used all those points and got this hotel room for free, which is cool. And it was actually not too bad, even though we had the worst room in the entire place. We got in pretty late. It was 9 o'clock at night. And we walk in and they're like, hey, would you like a room upgrade? And I was like, sure. And she's like, here's your card. It's room 127 or something like that. And I turn around the desk and our room is right there. And I'm like, oh, I didn't want to be right in the action with people coming in. And Cody said she could hear people coming in and out throughout the night and people talking and stuff. I usually, with Hilton, I have the app and I'm like a diamond member and all this stuff, whatever that means. And you can pick your room ahead of time. And I'm usually very strategic about this. I mentioned in our recent podcast that I'm quite the analytical person. And in this regard, I very much am. I'm like, okay, where's like the best parking area that I could get to in my room? What's the closest? What room is like on a higher up floor, but away from everything, but towards the middle? And I really delve into this. And in this case, like I went to do that and they were just like, we're preparing your room. We'll let you know when it's ready. I'm like, it's 9:00 at night. Our room should be ready. So when we went in, that was, I guess the upgrade was probably like, oh crap, we don't have a room for you. So like, we'll just give you this one. Because the room wasn't anything special. It wasn't like there was a jacuzzi and wine and had like a patio. No, it was a Hampton Inn room, but it was a free one, courtesy of Hilton. So, which it owns Hampton. You'd be surprised how many hotels Hilton owns. Like if you stay at a hotel, there's like a good chance that Hilton owns it. Quite the monopoly they have there. They've got hotels on Boardwalk, Park Place. Actually, that's a good joke because it's like a New York related thing. Ha. Okay. Anyways, is it? No, I don't know. It's not. I quit. We stayed there that night. Got a great night of sleep on my end. I felt wonderful getting up the next day. We got up early. And the cool thing about Hampton versus Hilton, which is weird because Hilton's like a more expensive place, they have like a little breakfast there. So we got a little bit of breakfast. The sun was coming up real nice outside. In fact, as I'm telling you all this, I know this is where I get into like the level of silliness with doing this podcast when I'm talking about my life and the things I've done, especially when I filmed them, because I ended up filming all of this. Everything that I'm about to talk about here, I filmed. But I did it in a really fun way that I have no idea if it's going to turn out or not. But I felt like, my usual style of video. I'm sure if you're listening to this or watching this, you know what a Greg's World vlog feels like. It's very like personal. It's like action, like in the moment. You feel like you're literally like coming along with us. I wasn't sure how Autumn and Chris would feel about like me putting them into our world like that. So I thought, what if I did something really fun here? Inspired by it's a video game dude that I watch who went to Hawaii. He filmed like all this B-roll of his trip and then did a voiceover talking about all of the things that he was showing and that they did. And I was like, that would be perfect for this. So I shot a ton of video without worrying about any part of the audio at all. And what I plan to do this week, I'm going to try to chop that all up. And I'm going to do a voiceover talking about everything that we did. In fact, if I could get this really dialed in, I'm going to have a script, of course. I'm not going to sit here and freestyle it like I'm doing with you, because we're having a conversation. You're sitting there with your apple cider. Apple cider season is upon us. In fact, I'll take a drink. For the ASMR detectors out there, we're just sitting here vibing. But when I make that video, I want it to be like a really scripted thing. And I'm hoping that I have enough footage of each of the things that we did and that I want to talk about to like fill it in. I think it's going to be really cool. It's definitely a new style. It's going to be one that my current audience has no interest in, I'm assuming, most of them. But for the audience that I want to reach and the direction that I want to go, I think that they're really going to love this. And if you're watching this, you're probably going to love it. So I'll tell you this story. Just know that there will be a video in the future, but you're getting like the insider scoop with a little more detail added on, because I don't think the video is going to be nearly as long as what this podcast most likely is going to be. So Friday night, stayed at the Hampton, got up Saturday morning. We drove over to their house, which was just a few miles away. And then we hopped in their vehicle and went to the Lancaster train station, which happens to be like 2 minutes from their house. I'm telling you, living in Lancaster is amazing. There's so many opportunities. There's so much happening. There's shopping everywhere. Like they have like a Target like 2 minutes from their house. They've got a train station that can take you to New York City 2 minutes from their house. Literally everything is 2 minutes from their house. And maybe for you, if you're listening to this, maybe that's just your life. You're like, okay, who cares? When you live where we live, I'm like driving 30 minutes to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Like it sucks. But they also talk about how sucky the traffic is. Like when they're trying to leave for work or come home, they sometimes have to sit 6 minutes at a red light or a stop sign waiting for the traffic, and just talk about how much busier it's gotten and how real estate is completely unaffordable now. And they're lucky that they have the house they have, because if they tried to get a house now, it'd probably be like $1 million. So the pros and the cons, where there is opportunity, there are people, and where there are people, there's demand for housing. So, it is what it is. I guess I'd rather be here rurally, and own my house outright, not have to worry about any of that, and just have like the flexibility and freedom to do whatever I want, and have like just great views all around, which isn't necessarily something you have in New York City. A great place to visit, and this I guess will be the takeaway. Great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. But we're getting ahead of ourselves in the story here. Let's back up. Arrived at the train station in the morning. rolled in there. We have our luggage with us, just a little carry-on type thing, which is, just one night type thing. Half of mine was filled with Cody stuff. I had the clothes I was wearing, including a flannel. I'm like the only dude in New York City with a flannel on, other than like the hipsters. But I had like an extra pair of shoes that I brought because I knew we were going out for a fancy dinner, like some nice clothes for that and clothes for the next day. That's all. I could have had a backpack on with just my stuff. So she filled hers up. She filled half of mine up. Welcome to married life, guys. And we got on the train and we went all the way down. I think the train goes from Harrisburg. It starts in Harrisburg, which is in like kind of the south central of LA, not LA, Pennsylvania. And then we scoot across to Lancaster. So we weren't on the first leg of it. And then it stops all these little stops and goes to Philadelphia. And then it goes to New York, which is pretty cool. So we were on that train in the morning. I hit it off fabulously with Chris, who he wasn't really our friend growing up. Autumn was our friend. I was in class with her since like second grade. And Cody knew her whole entire life. So we have like this tight little circle. And I was like kind of worried, like, what am I going to talk about with Chris for a couple hours? But the conversation just vibed. And it was all good. Like, it was fantastic. Like, could have done that all day. So we get to New York City, hop out of Penn Station, and we're in the hustle and bustle of New York. And it was pretty cool just to you're just like, wow, looking around and stuff, little country kid looking at all the city stuff. And one of the first things we wanted to do, and this was on my goal list and Autumn's too, thankfully, because this was her birthday. So we were trying to cater to like all the things that she really wanted, because you only turn 38 once, right? She wanted to go get some pizza. Chris and I did some recon on pizza places when we were on the train. That was one of our objectives. And then we went to, I don't remember the name of the place because I didn't edit the video yet. It was like, Supremes, something like that, pizza. And it was just like around the corner from Penn Station. So we went in there, got some pizza. It was glorious. And then Autumn's big thing that she wanted to do, this was Saturday. And I should say, I mentioned the weather earlier. I was worried about this ahead of time too, because I analyze things a lot and I think about all the different outcomes and things, like the conversation with Chris, like getting the parking spot at the Hilton or Hampton Inn, like getting the room. Everything is something that I consider greatly. Probably more than what you should. And if you want to go back and listen to a conversation on this, go back to the last 3 questions episode. You'll really love that one. But we got the pizza. It was great. Autumn wanted to go shopping at Macy's. This was like her thing. She wanted to go to Macy's. So we ended up going over there. And for me, it really wasn't my thing, shopping for clothes and stuff. I'm a pretty simple man. I don't have fancy clothes. This is just me. And the only thing that I bought at Macy's was probably the best thing you could buy from Macy's. On the, I think, 7th floor, they have an Annie Ann's. And anybody that knows me knows that Annie Ann's is my favorite thing in this world. And they even took my Annie Ann's away from me down at our mall, along with everything else at our mall. So I'm so depressed. So I was like, oh, my chance to get Annie Ann's. Cody and Autumn went off shopping together like girls do. Chris was looking for a jacket because he didn't bring a jacket and realized it was a little crisp. Meanwhile, I'm like, okay, I'm not shopping for clothes, but I'll take a pretzel. So I went up and got a pretzel and it was great. And then I met back up with them and kind of just tailed Cody and Autumn as they were shopping for shoes at Michael Kors and all this stuff, which why? But they both got a pair of shoes and Chris didn't find a coat or anything. So it was kind of a loss for him, but I got my pretzel. So I would say that of all the people that went to Macy's that day, I think I came out the winner of us all. After Macy's, we ended up going back to our hotel. I should say we stopped off there real quick just to dump our bags. Our room wasn't quite ready, but we ended up going back to our hotel, got all ready for dinner, and then, which basically just involved me putting on a new pair of pants and a button-up shirt that I bought the day before at Kohl's. I realized I don't have any good clothes. I don't go anywhere. Like my clothing, right now I'm wearing a pair of black Nike shorts and this shirt with a camera on it. Not quite New York City material, I guess, but who's to judge? So I was like, I need something to wear. So I got a new button-up shirt, and I wore that out to dinner that night. We went out to dinner, and we treated Autumn for dinner at this place that she chose, which was called, man, I should have made some better notes. I thought, I'll just freestyle this because that's what I like to do. Oh, Sugar Shack. It had a name, something of Gramercy, Giorgio's, something like that. I don't know, but it was pretty good, very expensive. I don't know if the expense of the place outweighed how good it was, but we paid, and I'll say this was the most expensive dinner that I've ever bought in my life, like ungodly levels. But Cody and Chris got some drinks, a couple of those. You figure how much that adds up to be. Getting appetizers and then dinners for 4 people. Crazy. I'd be happy. We were walking by. Oh, I forgot about the other place we went to. This is why I should have had better notes. We went to FAO Shorts. The reason I forgot about this, we went there after Macy's. I forgot about it because it sucked. I don't know what the hype is. It's a toy store, by the way. After going to Hamley's and seeing how epic that is in London with like 6 stories of just epic toys everywhere, going to FAO Shorts was a massive disappointment. So I just eliminated it from my story, but it will be in the video. I cut that. But when we're walking back from there, which was a long walk, we found like all these little street vendors selling all this delicious food. And there were like various meats that were cooking and hot sausages and lots of like gyros and meats on sticks and various things like that. And I was just like, oh my God, I would totally like, let's just skip the fancy dinner. I'll eat out here on the street eating meat on a stick. That's the life that I want to live. But this was Autumn's night, right? It's her birthday. So we went to that fancy place and got fancy dinner at fancy prices. Not my style though. That's, Cody loved it. She was looking forward to that too. But that's just not me. I'm just not that person. I'm just as happy going to Arby's as I am going to whatever this fancy restaurant is, I'm a simple man, if you can't tell. I'm not fooling anybody, right? This isn't the Brickatech or the Greg's World Podcasting Network headquarters. This is my basement. That's as fancy as we get. Had dinner, and then we went to do the other thing that we came to do for that day, which was to go see a show. We went to see Wicked, which was, I guess, all of our choices. There wasn't anything in particular that I really wanted to see on Broadway or whatever, other than there's a show called MJ, I think, which is like the Michael Jackson story, and I care or don't care about him, whatever his situation is in life and whatever may have done. His music is amazing, and I thought at the very least this is going to be an awesome show of music. But I didn't realize like that was even a thing until like I was looking later after this was already set up. I was like, oh, what else are they playing? Because we were mostly curious about like what Hamilton tickets are, and that was the only like show that I've seen like that. And we watched that in London because the tickets in New York City for Hamilton are insane, absolutely like incredibly insane. So I was happy to have seen that in London, because otherwise that would have been like my number one. And I'll say, after watching Wicked, which is the story, it like fills in all the gaps around the Wizard of Oz. If you've ever seen that movie, it's a classic. It kind of gives you like the prequel, what's happening during the movie, and then like kind of a little bit after. It's like all over the place, but it fills it all in. I didn't like Wicked nearly as much as Hamilton. Hamilton, as the kids say, slaps. I just love the music from it. I love the story. And I would say Hamilton in London was a much better show than what Wicked was, but Autumn liked it. And again, this was her birthday thing. I had a okay time. I mean, it was fun to watch. I wouldn't do it again, and I shudder to know what we may have paid for it. Cody handled all the financial end of these things. So the only thing that I really know is that I spent like $8 on a pretzel at Macy's, and we spent an incredible amount of money on dinner that night. But who knows how much the tickets were for Wicked. I hate to say it wasn't worth it, because it was an experience. So I'll say it was worth it, because like a famous poet once said, it's a free ride once you've already paid. It's the good advice that you just didn't take, right? Alanis Morissette, everybody. Thank you. I just captured all of the people that are 40 years old or more. If you're younger than me, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So we did that night. We went back after that. It was pretty darn late. It was like 11:30 by the time we got back home, because that show runs long. It's like 2.5 hours or something like that. Got back to our hotel, which was the Hotel Giraffe that Cody chose, and we went right to sleep. That was it for that day. The next day, though, was more my style. This is what I want to do there. I don't really want to go to Macy's when I go to New York City. I don't necessarily even want to see a show. I want to see architecture. And that's exactly what we did the next day. We got up, we took a lift. Autumn handled all these lifts. We took lifts like 50 different times throughout the time we were there. I shudder to know what she paid for that too. We paid for dinner. She paid for the lifts. It probably worked out, honestly. But drove us all the way down to the very southern tip, I'm thinking, of New York City, Manhattan, and we rode a ferry over to the Statue of Liberty. And that was my favorite thing that I got to see there. Well, one of the two favorite things. The next thing is coming up. Went out to see the Statue of Liberty, and I love that. I was like, I had that feeling like I felt when I was in London, where I was like, I can't believe I'm actually here looking at this. I can't believe this is happening in real life. Like, I'm literally looking up at this thing that I've seen so many times, that I've built out of Lego several times, that it's just like, wow, I'm here. And the history of it, we did like a little tour type thing with a tour guide there too. So we got some background history as well, which I didn't care too much about that. I just really wanted to see it. And I was just like, wow, this is so darn cool. And I loved it. That was like our whole morning, and it was beautiful outside. It was a lovely fall day, just a gorgeous day in October in New York. And to see the Statue of Liberty and be like standing right there with it was incredible. That's the kind of stuff that I want to do. So after that, we got some lunch, which lunch was at like kind of like a tavern type place, or like a pub almost. They had like music playing there and stuff. And I liked my lunch, but Autumn got really screwed over with hers. She ordered a hamburger and it was like raw inside, like literally like raw meat. And she asked for a new one, and they brought the second one, which I anticipated like, man, if you send that back, the next one you get's going to be burnt like a hockey puck. You know, they're going to be like, I'll make sure it's done. This one was raw too. So she just bailed on the food. And then they gave Chris the wrong meal and then had to remake it. And I don't think he was overly impressed. Mine was pretty okay, but it was like, dang. And that was like $80 for lunch. And we split that. So it was again, if you're going to New York City, I think our tour guide said New York City does a great job of parting tourists from their money, or just anyone from their money. And that was true. You can't go there with any kind of budget in mind, or be like, I'm going to try to take it easy, because it's not happening. But after that, we ended up walking over and seeing the World Trade Center Memorial and the new World Trade Center, the Freedom Tower. I think, is it the Freedom Tower? Is that what it's called? I should probably look that up. Oh, I guess it's not called the Freedom Tower anymore. It's called One World Trade Center, which makes sense. That was awesome too, though. If I mention this, I love seeing the architecture of New York City. And if I were to go back, that's exactly what I would want to do there the entire time. I just want to look at buildings. I want to know the backstory on them. I want to see everything there is to see in regards to New York City. And I think next time I go, which I think I will go back, I'd like to take a helicopter ride. When we were going down on the ferry and going over to the Statue of Liberty, there was helicopters everywhere flying all over the place. And I'm like, dude, that would have been really cool to do. And Cody said she considered it, but I think next time I'm going to do a helicopter tour of New York City, hopefully not being in the one helicopter that crashes, but I think that'd be amazing to see. We didn't get a chance to go to Central Park. Again, I would have rather done that than Macy's any day, just to see what that's like. And we saw the Empire State Building, so you can check that one off the list. I mean, there's probably tons of stuff to see and do and experience. We just probably scratched the surface, but I can check a few things off my list. I'd like to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. I think that'd be kind of cool too, since you can do that. So I have some things left. And again, it's not super hard for us to make this happen, because all I'd have to do is drive my car to Harrisburg, which is maybe like an hour and a half, 40 minutes, get on the Amtrak train, and then ride it from Harrisburg to Lancaster, where we started our journey at, and then ride it straight out from Philly to New York City. And I could be in New York City by like 11 a.m. probably. Spend the whole day there and then ride the train back, which is what we did Sunday night after seeing the World Trade Center. That was like our final thing there. We went back to our hotel via Lyft, got our bags, and then went back to Penn Station. And then we rode the train home and picked Clark Mann up at Yammy's at like 11 o'clock on Sunday. So this was like a whirlwind of a weekend. Left Friday at like 6 p.m., dropping Clark Mann off with her. I think I should have probably mentioned that he wasn't with us. I guess it was probably assumed on your part. But we did that Friday at 6, stayed at the Hampton Inn, went to New York City by train Saturday morning, did all of that stuff, seeing the show and all that and shopping, and then went to sleep, woke up the next day, did it all again, rode the train home. It was a crazy weekend, and it was a blast. I'm so excited to turn the video into something. I'm hoping that I can turn it into something. This is my first time ever trying to do something like this, because like there's no good audio to use from the video clips. So I need to like make up for it in the voiceover, and I'm hoping I can do something epic. We'll see. Be my first experience in trying it, but I think it lends a level of professionalism to the video that you don't have when you're doing it my style, because I really like the one that I watched, and I'll try to replicate it and see what I can turn it into. On the way home, though, I want to talk to you about Read a Tech News, or in this case, Listen to Tech News. We were riding the train home, and in this case, like, we were all kind of pooched. We were all, like, I was pretty tired because we didn't get much sleep the night before. We went to bed late and got up early, but it still didn't affect my day, thankfully. And I was just like, I just want to chill. Hopefully Chris doesn't want to talk for the next like 3 hours on the way home. Autumn and Cody, the whole time, chat, sitting in front of us. But I was like, Chris bought a book at Penn Station. So I'm like, okay, he's going to read a book on the way back. Cool. I'll listen to my audiobook that I've been trying to finish for like a year. It's called Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. If you don't know who John Green is, him and his brother have a YouTube channel, one of the first channels I've ever came across back in the day. They had a series called Brotherhood 2.0 where they both make videos talking back and forth to each other. They just have a really great channel called Vlog Brothers. And each of the guys is super intelligent and just really engaging and interesting to listen to. And I love the work that they do. And John has written a few books. Several of them have become movies. For example, A Fault in Our Stars. You've probably seen that movie. Looking for Alaska is one of his most famous books. Paper Towns, I've read that one too. And Turtles All the Way Down is actually becoming a movie. Like, they just wrapped production on it. And I wanted to finish this book. I started it, and I just, every time I go to listen to it, I just like fall asleep. And it's for good reason, because the book sucks. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, the story is wacky. It's about this girl named Asa and her friend Daisy, who have another friend by the name of Davis, and his dad's a billionaire, and he goes missing when he's about to be brought up on like fraud charges, and there's a reward for him. So Asa and Daisy try to like befriend Davis again, because Asa and him were friends from way back in the day. And then like Asa and Davis kind of develop like a relationship a little bit, and it goes on. I'm not going to spoil it in case you want to make the mistake of reading it, but the story is just wacky and out there. But the real reason that people seem to love this book, and like all the reviews I've read on this are just like, this is the most incredible thing of all time. This is his best book. And I'm just like, it's not. His best book is The Anthropocene Reviewed, which is a nonfiction book with a little bit of his life and story into it. But this one is about a girl that's struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, like mental issues. And some of the best parts of the book are where her brain and her are like going back and forth, and like she's like struggling because she's always like worried about like bacteria in her mouth and hand sanitizer and all this stuff. And I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't relate to the character. The story was ridiculous, and like a missing billionaire, and we're trying to find him as like we're investigators or whatever. I'm just out. But I finished the book and I regret all of it. It just wasn't for me. So like, it kind of got me thinking that, you know what I really love the most? I don't like listening to fiction or reading fiction. I do like nonfiction in some regards because I like to learn something. What I love most is podcasts. I love hearing people share their stories. I love like inspirational stuff on podcasts. I love, most of all, podcasts like this, and there's very few of them where it's just somebody kind of sharing their week or their day or talking about their life, and you kind of get invested in that. And like, I really look forward to the few podcasts that are very personal like this that I have. I look forward to listening to them every week, but my problem is I have a lot of time to listen each week, especially with going to the gym, and I end up running out. So I did this Google search for like personal podcasts or like audio journal podcasts, diary podcasts, and I put the word Reddit after it. And I found like this Reddit post, it was just a few days old, that someone was looking for the same thing. And then this person, this is going to be a great story. You're going to love this. This person was like, yeah, my wife and I are quitting our jobs and rebuilding, and we're sharing that via podcast. And I'm like, that sounds incredible, because I can relate to that somewhat, and I would love to hear that journey. So I just replied back. I was like, what is your podcast called? And then he sent me a chat message, and this is where it gets weird, but I want to share this with you because you're going to be like, wow. So I'm not going to share the person's name or where this is from or anything like that, but he sent me a chat message that says, hey, I'm keeping everything under wraps right now because we're still in the holding period between putting in our notices and no longer actually being with the companies. So I guess he didn't want to post this publicly on Reddit. I assumed he would just be like, oh, my podcast is called like Rebuilding Our Lives or something like that. No, it's much worse than that. He says, but we're recording the episodes weekly as things transpire and look forward to sharing. He says, leaving behind $300K in household income and documenting our rebuild journey. So I'm like, okay, that sounds kind of cool. So I said to him, I said, I love that. I said, I actually quit my job back in 2017 to do YouTube full time. It's been amazing. I said, what are you guys going to do? And then this is where things just fall apart, like completely go down the tubes drastically. He says, not entirely sure yet. She's a lawyer and I'm a sales guy. My brother is a big real estate investor. So between those three things, something will work out. Okay. I said, this is where I'm like, oh God. I was sharing this with Cody when it was happening. I said, so you're going into real estate investing, doing the same work, but for different companies or for yourself? I said, I get that you're quitting your jobs to rebuild, but do you have any actual idea of what you were building? Because I feel like I'm a Lego guy, obviously, and when I'm building something, I tend to have an idea of what I'm going to build, or I'm using instructions, or you have like a picture you're looking at or something. Like you don't just sit down and just like, oh, something will work out here. Idea you do, I don't know, but that's definitely not the style that I come from as the analytical type. I said, I get that you're quitting your jobs to rebuild, but do you have any actual idea what you're building? As someone who has made this leap, I wouldn't rely on something will work out plan. On the something will work out plan, all in quotes. Something will work out. Just my opinion, though. I wanted to throw that in there. Like, you don't have to listen to me, but like, this sounds bad. He says, this is his response. Well, my family owns a commercial pest control company, so I've been acquiring new customers there as a side gig. She's looking at doing drop shipping, which is a thing where you sell products to people, but you don't actually sell them directly. You do it through a third party, and then like they're like the middleman, and you're like the middleman, and you take the money. This is a terrible plan, I'll tell you that. He says, we're both actively finding off-market deals to wholesale to investors. And then he says, a little bit of everything, I guess you could say. I plan on working a package with my current employer to increase my income 3 times and work on a contractor basis so I can become self-employed instead of quitting. All reasons why we're recording but not launching the show yet. I won't discourage anyone from, chasing their dreams or whatever, but for me reading that, do you feel like this guy has a solid plan on what they're going to do? Like the something will work out. My brother does this. My family does this. We're looking into this. And you're putting your notice in already? How about you do that stuff on the side, maybe for like 6 months, maybe a year. In my case, I did YouTube for 6 years before I took the leap into doing my own thing. Why don't you try it out and see if it works? That way you're not just like bailing. But I mean, the other side of this and what I'd like to say to him, I don't know if I want to continue this conversation because I just might be like, well, let me know when your podcast is out because I'm definitely interested in hearing it now. Worst case scenario is you got a bunch of savings saved up to make this leap. And this is how I thought when I quit my job. You got a bunch of money saved up. Maybe you try this thing out. And if it doesn't work out, the truth is you're always employable. You could always go back to a sales job. Your wife's a lawyer. She's certainly going to get a job again. It's not like I feel like a lot of people worry that if I quit this job that I have, I'm sunk. I'll never work in this town again. That's not true. In fact, if you leave on really good terms and if you explain to your employer what you're trying to do, they might even have you back. You might lose like your seniority. You might lose whatever benefits you have. Like say you got a ton of vacation, but if you don't burn bridges, there's a good chance that you'll be just fine and you could go back into that industry or a different one. And it's never completely over for you. So if anyone's out there and they're like, Greg, oh man, you just crushed my dream because I was gonna see what works out by quitting my job this week and maybe trying a podcast and maybe trying to work with my family or my brother or whatever. Try to have something a little more solid than that before you jump out. But to each his own. And I wish this guy the best. I am gonna message him back and be like, dude, you got to share my podcast. Or your podcast title. Also, here's mine where I shared your story already because I actually have one that's out. But nonetheless, I didn't really find any good podcasts that are personal, like on a personal level, other than this one that I think it's called, Cody and I listened to the first episode last night. It was pretty nuts. It's called Mortified. And it was this girl, it's called the Mortified Podcast. This is a girl sharing the story like from her high school days. And I'm just like the secondhand embarrassment that I was having from listening to her stories about her love life and, basically everything. It definitely is a well-titled show. So that was like the only one I could find. If you have anything out there, if you're listening to this and you love a podcast that like, if you can think of any podcast that's like this, where it's just a dude sitting down or anyone, could be anybody just sitting down and like talking about the things on their mind and their week, that I could just sit down for like 30 minutes a week and listen to whatever they had to say, regardless of what it is, just because I come to know them and like them as a person, please share it with me. I beg of you. I'm looking for as many people that do this as I possibly can, because it's awesome. And I wish Apple had more of like a way to search for things like this. There should be like a whole category. It's just like personal journals. And I think Spotify has it that way. So maybe I should go over there and start looking, but Apple doesn't. So I don't know. I don't know how you would find this podcast if you were just like looking for a personal journal. Like Greg's World Podcast is probably not going to come up any searches or anything. I don't know how people find these things. There's probably ones that exist out there that I just can't find. And that sucks. But I'll keep searching. I'm looking for people. This is what I used to do on YouTube when I was looking for Lego channels to subscribe to. YouTube did such a terrible job back then, I felt, at like sharing, or like their algorithm at showing channels that I was interested in, that I would just watch videos of people that I liked and then look at usernames and be like, oh, that person probably has a Lego channel. I'd click it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like this person. I'll subscribe to them. It was like the dirty way of doing it. And I'm down for doing that again in the podcasting world if I have to. But yeah, I mentioned I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm working out, and fitness is still a big thing in my life. I want to share a little bit of progress with that, but I have some more topics that I'm going to share next week with this, because I've thought of a few things and I want to get your feedback on something in particular, but I don't want it to be this deep into the episode. So we're going to do a whole fitness inspired episode next week. Not entirely, but just a bigger segment. But I want to include this in each week just to let you know how I'm doing. Down 4 pounds in 6 weeks. I mentioned early on I wasn't really losing at all after doing, like, I'm really focusing on strength training mostly. But 4 pounds in 6 weeks I feel like is okay-ish. We had, and this is with an entire week in Ocean City, Maryland, where I went crazy, eating and stuff, and then traveled to New York City, which that set me back. I was doing good and that set me back, but I'm still down 4 and 6, which is good. And I'm not like super concerned about the weight, because I know the weight's going to keep coming. In fact, like my bigger concern is once I hit my weight loss goal, what am I going to do then? All I'm going to have is the strength element, which I've been loving. I love going to the gym. It's my favorite thing that I do. I have so much regret for not doing this sooner, and I'm just obsessed with it. I feel so freaking good when I leave there. I love feeling powerful, which is how I feel when I'm there and when I leave. I love the soreness the next day when I can get it. And like, I actually seek that out. Like, I want my legs to hurt. I want my arms to hurt. And I just go through there. My strategy is very much, I think, unlike a lot of people, where you focus on a few muscle groups each day. I try to hit like as many machines as I can, and I rotate between upper body and lower body. I'll do something for biceps, destroy my arms. And as I'm writhing in pain from how bad I ruined myself, I'll go do a leg machine and allow my arms to heal. Like regenerate. I feel like I'm playing Halo and my shield's coming back up. And then I'll go over to do a different arm exercise or a chest or whatever. And I hit everything like crazy. And then I always do like some type of biking or treadmill or elliptical or whatever. I haven't done the elliptical there because we have one at home. So I usually do treadmill or I do the bike. And I love it. It's been the greatest thing that I've added into my life this year. And it's my number one focus, my number one passion. Well, videos is always going to be there, but like, this is me. This is what I do. I'm making this a lifestyle. And I already notice a difference. Like, I feel great. I feel strong, like I mentioned, even though like it's probably all in my head, but who cares? Like, I'm seeing myself be able to do bigger numbers there. It may not be some of these dudes. Like I always kind of like, I look and see what other people are doing. And like, I guess I'm judging them, and I'm like, but like, I'm like some dudes, I'm like, dang, that guy's doing like the whole stack. It's like 250 pounds. And then you'll have this old man that you think would be weak, right? Like these old dudes, but they're sneaky strong. Some of these guys are just freaking putting up weight more than I am. I'm like, dang, it's impressive. But what impresses me most when I'm at the gym, more than anything, not the guy doing the whole rack. I'm impressed by the people that are very overweight, or you can tell like they're struggling, like health-wise or fitness-wise. And to see them showing up there and doing their thing, I love that. I love to see somebody there that is like, would be easier just to be on the couch, but they're putting the work in and they're making like they're taking that step. And I'm just like, dang, I'm so impressed by you. Like if you're 400 pounds and you're at Planet Fitness and you're sitting there, even if you're doing a 5-pound weight or whatever, or if you're walking on the treadmill, I'm just like, dang, that's awesome. And I would love to say something to these people. I just want to, but it's so weird. Like nobody there talks to each other. Nobody like looks at each other. Like you're in your own zone. And most people have their headphones on or whatever, AirPods in. But I just want to be like, give a thumbs up or something to one of these people. But I think that might be taken the wrong way, especially if it's a guy or a girl. I don't think there's any good way to do it. But if you could just say something to someone like that, like, hey, dude, nice work. Can you realize like what an impact that could have on their day or their week or anything? Like it's so hard to get compliments from people. Even at your job, you do a really great job. They're like, yeah, good job. But like if somebody came up to you in the gym, they're like, dude, you're killing it. That's why anytime I see somebody running, I always do a thumbs up when somebody's running, because they're probably tired. They just ran 75 miles or whatever. That thumb up, that might get them to 76. And I want to encourage people. It's one of my things that I like to do. I try to encourage. And I just privately think these things. And I wish I could like share them without being a weirdo. But I don't want to be the weirdo at the gym, so I don't say anything at all. And I wish I could. So I'll talk more about some gym stuff next week. I got a couple of topics that I think you guys will really like. So we'll push that one off. But I want to talk about something that I'm starting, and this is going to be like part of next week's episode as well. It's kind of like a little preview thing. I'm incorporating goals into each one of my days, and I'm using video to make sure that I do those things. And it's going to be a series on Greg's World that I think you are going to really enjoy. I don't think the younger audience is going to love it nearly as much. But I think if you're somebody that's out there trying to do something that you haven't done before, or to get to somewhere where you haven't been, whether it's fitness or business or life or organization, whatever it is, this is going to be a series for you. And I'm going to talk way more about that next week. I just started this yesterday. I'm going to be filming this all throughout the week. So I'm going to keep it close now, but I'll open up next week and I'll tell you all about it. And I think it's going to be something that could be inspiring to maybe somebody out there. That's my purpose. I feel like it might just seem like I'm a guy just talking to a microphone in my basement, but there's something more to it than that. It's not just that. Contrary to what I said at the beginning of this episode. So I'm excited about that. Other things that I'm doing, I've decided that I'm going to make gaming a part of my life again. I'm trying to juggle like 4 different plates at once with 2 hands. And gaming was like the one that fell off. Like I dropped the plate of spaghetti all covered in cheese onto the ground while someone sneezed. And I want to pick that one back up. And I'm trying to figure out, I actually did a poll this morning. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that. In this case, I did a live stream, which I kind of got back into that. And I've talked about live streaming on a previous episode of the business meeting, which is a podcast episode series that we do here at the Greg's World Podcasting Network. And it was okay-ish. I'm still trying to decide whether I just want to do like nothing in terms of gaming, nothing but live streams, or if I want to do like some type of recording of content and then just put that as an edited video, like a 5-minute video as opposed to like a 1-hour stream. I'm going to see what people there like the most. In terms of my schedule, carving out like 1 hour each day, or like weekdays, for example, would be much easier to do that, where I'm just like, I'm playing games for an hour today and we're going to work towards something in some game, just like life, really. It would be much easier than recording for an hour and then going back and be like, okay, I got to like chop this and chop this and chop this and chop this, all for like just a few hundred people to watch. It might just be easier just to do the live thing. Also kind of develops like a engagement there, I think, too, which people are desperate for. And you could be along with me while we have fun gaming. So that's come back a little bit. I played Pilot Wing 64. It's a game from my childhood that I never owned but borrowed, and I really loved. I love flying games. And this is a rudimentary one, but it's a ton of fun. There's a hang glider, there's a rocket belt, and like a helicopter type thing that you can fly around in the game, and I love it. So I might be doing some more of that here. But I just want to play like different games and stuff all the time. Not just one game in particular. I'm like I guess I'd consider me like a variety streamer or person. But the people that do best, I think, are the ones that just buckle down and do like one thing. Like all I do is play Animal Crossing, for example. I do that every day for like the last 6 years for 5 hours a day. Those people do really well, because there's like these audiences really want you to niche down. And that's where I've always struggled on YouTube, because I'm all over my vlogs or whatever is going on in my life at that time and whatever chapter I'm in. My Lego stuff, similar situation. Even this channel got repurposed and now is a podcast channel. It used to be a Lego streaming channel. We're just everywhere. But I don't want to narrow myself down to one thing. I just want to follow my passions wherever they may be at any time. And I want people to follow the person more than the thing. If you're coming to me just for the Animal Crossing content, for example, Why couldn't someone else just fill that for you? You got to have something to offer people. And I hope in my case, it's something more than what I'm showing. Instead, it's what I'm sharing personally. So that's the thing. And I'll report back on that and how that's going. YouTube rabbit hole this week. I was going to make this a show. If anyone has any YouTube rabbit holes that they want me to go down and talk about, I'd love to make that a show that I do once a week here. But I'll share, like, this is a little segment here for now. And this rabbit hole is about waking up at 5 a.m. I saw a channel where the guy was talking about how he gets up at 5 a.m. And I've heard other people do this too, where it's all about getting up at 5 a.m. and like getting your exercise in and doing all of your work and getting it all done, which is all great. But then these people end up falling asleep at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or like they go to bed at like 6 p.m. And it's like, you're not really gaining anything by getting up at 5 a.m., especially if it's miserable for you, if you're not a morning person. Me personally, I'm up by like 5 or 6 o'clock every day, no problem. I don't need an alarm. In fact, I can't tell you the last time I set an alarm. I just wake up and I do my thing. Usually I have an alarm, it's called a Chocolate Lab. And if she notices that I move or rustle at all, there's this wet nose that comes over and it touches me in my arm. That's my alarm. Even if I just want to stay in bed for a bit longer, it's not an option. It's breakfast time. It's breakfast 30 in Roxy's world. So I don't buy the whole getting up at 5 a.m. thing. I buy when you get up, even if it's at 10 o'clock in the morning, if you want to sleep in until 10 a.m., if you're more of an afternoon or night owl, get your work done, get your primary objective done early first. Don't piss around and do nothing and then later realize you can get anything done or have to struggle to get it done later in the day if you have like a deadline for something. I think the message that I took from these getting up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever videos, do those things that are most important to you early in the day, and then you don't have that stress later in the day. But again, if you're a night owl, some people do their best work at like midnight. In that case, get up at 8 p.m., right? Do all of your night owl stuff and then go to bed at 6 a.m. when the sun comes up or whatever. I don't know. But don't get up at 5 a.m. just because, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and be all, super aggressive and let everyone know that I'm getting up early when I'm just like a walking zombie and I have to have coffee and then I'm doing this stuff and I'm super tired. It's dumb. If you're not a morning person, don't be a morning person is what I learned. Last thing, thought of the week. This is just something that I was thinking about when Clark Man got a pair of shoes for a costume that he's going to be wearing for Halloween, which I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. You got to wait until Halloween. It's a pair of red shoes, by the way. And they're Under Armour, and they have Velcro on the top. And Cody mentioned about like kids must not learn or want to tie their shoes anymore because it's like every pair of shoes that she went shopping for had Velcro. And I was like, why aren't all shoes Velcro? Why do we have shoelaces? You would think once Velcro was invented, you would never have shoelaces again. Like shoelaces come untied. They're a pain to tie. They look kind of cool, I guess, like visual standpoint. But Velcro is just so easy and it's completely adjustable, especially if you have mobile Velcro straps going down your shoe. Why isn't Velcro the only type of shoe that you can buy unless it's like a slip-on shoe? That's my question to the world. Is it because they're seen as like juvenile? Is it because it's seen as like an old man type shoe? I mean, we've talked about shoes before with Crocs. Crocs are kind of the ultimate shoe. Unless you want grip or any kind of insulation from the elements, they're not great for that. But as like a summer shoe, they are the ultimate shoe. With socks on, of course. Fight me. Why are not all shoes Velcro? I think it's a huge missed opportunity. And there's probably other things like this too. It's almost like they invent the automatic transmission. Why would you have a manual transmission after an automatic one was invented? The car's shifting for you. You can be more relaxed. You don't have to worry about that. Less likely to cause like damage or issues or like rolling backwards on hills. I know some people like that experience, and maybe that's what it is. It's all about having that experience of like tying your shoe, driving a stick shift. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense. But such as humans, we do a lot of things that don't make sense just because they've always been done this way, or we feel the pressure from others to do it a certain way. And it just sucks to live your life that way, especially with women. I feel like women have it the worst, where you have to have your hair long or a certain way. You have to have makeup on. You have to wear this and you have to look good. Guys have it a lot easier. I could show up in this anywhere and people are just like, whatever, Such as the modern struggle that we're in, I guess. But that is this week's episode of Missing Pieces. Our trip, things I'm working on, fitness talk. Everybody loves that, right? Getting back into some gaming stuff, my YouTube rabbit hole. If you have one that you'd like to share, I'm thinking about making this a thing. So if you've been down some YouTube or TikTok rabbit holes that I could go down and report back on, give me a shout on that. And also the Thought of the Week Velcro shoes. Love to hear your thoughts on that. I am considering bringing back a little bit of listener feedback into this, but I prefer it to be at the end. And I feel like it's not quite as relevant at the end, but we probably could make that a thing. But there's been like back and forth on that. Some people are like, love listener feedback. Some people are like, I don't really care for it. So you can let me know on that as well. But on that, hope you have a glorious week this week, and we'll see you all in the next episode.